issue for some of the top drivers here, the ones with the experience. It's just the other elements that are added to the equation, but it means they've got more over a brow, round a corner, over another brow. So there's a yellow and red flag. Just looking yellow and red. So someone's dropped something nasty and slippery on the circuit just before flag. Just looking yellow and red. So someone's dropped something nasty and slippery on the circuit just before the moment where we've got Porsche Cayman. Two Porsche Caymans off on the left-hand side of the driver's point of view. Drivers go past, they wait for the signal. Where are they going to get the green flag to let them go all over again? Not for the next corner. Still looking at the marshal's post, still yellow and red flags. There's a further incident next time around. Okay, this is the Brunch and Flansgaard issue, isn't it? Two separate corners separated by a couple of corners in between, but once they got through there, the other side of Flansgaard, they can get going again.
And Muller now clears Cherzanovsky. I'm not convinced they were on the same lap anyway, but that might have been an element of Cherzanovsky just blending off the throttle as he picked the speed back up again to say, do you know what, I'm just going to lose you as a headache, as a distraction in the mirror. And the 948 car running second in Cup 2, keen to try and make up any portion of that 47 seconds that separates the front bumper of Tobias Muller's car from 48 Loesch Motorsport and the blue and white Arne Hofmeister-driven Mühlner Motorsport car that leads the class.
Car's being shoved back into garage at the moment. It's last year's championship winning team with their BMW wheel back. That's one with Maxell sponsorship. I thought that was a message to our erstwhile race leader. Sell what? It's SE single L, friends.
Oh, yes.
But again, repairs under the right rear corner of the car. This is where the mechanics need to earn their keep. And if they've, just look at how little space. Now they've kindly put the car up on jacks so the mechanic can actually slide underneath the right rear corner of that number 1 BMW. Not racing in the top class, but this team won the championship last year. And just go back to the issue of points. You score points according to how many people finish or start in your class. And it's generally drivers for cars further down the order. This is running in the M240i BMW class. And if this one probably not going to win it today, but every variety of spanner and wrench being used under that one. But again, for example, 7 cars in their class. If they win, they'll get 7 points in the bag. And certainly it tends to be in the better populated classes. Yeah, more competitive perhaps, but the more people you beat, the more points you put in your pot across the course of this season. Spring through to autumn, every single weather condition imaginable will be experienced, of course, across the course of the season. But the NLS, the Nurburgring Langstrecken series, the long distance series, it's a test for the mechanics, Johnny, as much as it is for the drivers and the pit crew, because they have to be able to react to things that get broken and know how to fix them quickly. And the better teams have watched, and they've learned from example, how Audi really conquered the World Endurance Championship. But it's about a decade ago when they started just having they had special bags of tools for each appropriate job. Clever, eh? Rather than fishing around. You've got, who's taken that spanner? They know, right, we're changing the right rear corner. Here's the bag of tools. Okay, you need a lot of tools, but it certainly saves time. And if you can save yourself 20 seconds, well, you'll do that in a race, wouldn't you?
You might need a spare garage as well to keep it all safe. But normally these days at Le Mans, for example, the paddocks continually getting encroached by the back of the garages, which just progress further and further out towards the fan area. Very tricky if you're a journalist to get anywhere close to the drivers these days, but that is the nature of Le Mans, I suppose.
Well, it is. You walk in through the garage, walking from the pit lane side, you go through what we traditionally think of as the garage, and then we started to have little rooms behind, which might be a room where a driver goes for a massage, but largely that's where the engineers sit with their banks of screens. And yet, as you say, you get to the back of the pit building, and then people put awnings up and semi-permanent structures. And if you're walking from the front to back, I mean, you feel the seasons might have changed by the time you got to the far end. But certainly, yeah, it's harder to get through. But rooms of purpose, and every bit of space is used. But you have, again, large areas where they have more than just a driver kit, but they've got these specialist bits of Kielstart ready to tackle individual jobs.
A flurry of more announcements and potentially penalties from race control. So the first of them is that the 901 Porsche, which is third in Cup 2 for Patrick Grutter, is going to have to take a penalty lap. Now, this is not rallycross, as in you have to do a joker lap, but there is a separate route that you'll have to take in the Mercedes arena for one lap, and that is through the dotted bay, which is effectively the driver's right outside bit. There's a perfect opportunity to see it, in fact. So coming out of turn 1, see that dotted line, which means that if you drive through that lane, the outer lane, that is therefore considered a penalty lap, and it's an opportunity to slow somebody down who has been pinged for a relatively small-scale infringement. It was an unsafe pit release, so that means Patrick Grutter's going to have to drive through that part of the racetrack, which is not the ideal racing line. Also, the 50 Equipe Vitesse Audi has been potentially caught speeding the pit lane. That's currently under investigation, and having fallen below a minimum pit stop time for the 906 car, a 5-second stop-and-go penalty, 906 being another Cup 2 Porsche, this time for the Van Ramshorst driver, a team with no name. They are 9th in Cup 2. But the most significant of those is the third-placed Porsche. Now, how close is Patrick Grutter to the next Cup 2 car? There's only 5 and a bit seconds between them, although Jan-Jaap van Room has just made a stop in the Max Cruiser racing car, so that's not going to be quite as close as it was. Grutter may have already taken that penalty, because I noticed that first sector is about 4 or 5 seconds slower than it would. Well, mind you, I'm comparing it to a GT car, so won't say that that's been served quite yet. You'll get more than one chance to do it.
I mentioned sunshine. Please pretend I didn't, because it certainly seems to have gone away for now on the start-finish straight. In the background there is blue sky, but the important thing for all the crews, it's remaining dry. We've got an hour and 20 minutes or so remaining in this 4-hour race. That's the standard format and length for the Nurburgring Langstrecken series, and the gap between first and second has actually come down. It was 1 minute and 8 seconds, but a better lap last time round for Vincent Cole. But yes, he's closing a bit on Chris Lullam, the Emil Fry Racing Ferrari that he took over from Max Verstappen. But on this lap, it's like Lullam's gone, OK, I've got the measure of this. More to the point, though, we've got so many slow zones and waved yellow flag areas that it is making it difficult for drivers to put in really quick laps. And the fact is, oh, right, OK, another lap completed. That means 19 laps on the board. But the lap that Chris Lullam has just done is 8 minutes 29.2 seconds, and that is the best, getting on towards 37 seconds slower than the best lap that car has done. That is the effect, quite simply, of a lot of yellow zones around the circuit. You have to back it off, and in fact, many a time in the Nurburgring Langstrecken series, you might have a race with very few incidents, but just enough to mean you almost have no laps without a yellow flag somewhere slowing your progress. But the golden standard, 51.5, was set early in this race in the first stint by Max Verstappen. And the car's still out front by more than a minute, but the team that took victory last time out, the Hout Racing team with their Mustangs, sitting there in second and third. But, you know, you're not, surely, with an hour and 17 minutes or so remaining in this race, going to claw back what you've already lost. And that is over a minute. Sounds good, though.
It certainly does. Looks great on paper if it can stay in that margin, but one car out there to prevent that from happening is certainly Vincent Cole in his number 6 Hout Racing Team Ford Mustang. The other one is Dennis Fetzer in the 9 car with that keyboard wrapped livery down both sides of the car. It's like a QWERTY keyboard, which is an addition to the otherwise close to the livery of the Uber motorsport car doing. That's a bit further down in 15th position, but 4th in the SP9 AMS, and has at the wheel Hans Wehrmann currently, having taken over from Joachim Tyson. Thomas Kiefer is in that lineup as well. As now the two Ferraris have found one another. Now, of course, they're not on the same lap, but Chris Lullum is trying to get by Klaus Aberlan, and Aberlan actually gives him a lot of racing room around the outside at the bottom of the foxhole, heading towards Adenauer Forst now, and that could have been far more awkward than perhaps Chris Lullum was thinking it might be. One fellow Ferrari driver looking out for another.
Yeah, it could certainly have been very good for the Ferrari parts department, but anyhow, you know, certainly Klaus Aberlan's been racing the Nordschleife for a very long time. The last thing he would want to do is interrupt fellow Ferrari drivers. So he pulled out the way very nicely, but just get this, at this point, Klaus Aberlan, 65 years old, is getting towards the end of his 3rd hour in the race. Is he going to do the whole thing solo? Well, he might have to, because there are no teammates entered in his car, whereas our race-leading car, 2 hours completed by Max Verstappen in that gave a big lead of just over a minute before he handed over to Chris Lullum. Chris Lullum in for this stint, but there's still one more stint to come. We don't know if Max fancies getting back in or if he's going to go, hey, let's do this 50-50. But either way, it's going to take something quite enormous for them not to head on into victory. Worth pointing out, of course, in the early part of the season, the entry list is sort of more packed at the top end. A lot of people only do the first half of the season, then do the Nurburgring 24 hours. That will be in the back of Max's mind. You know, maybe it's not such a difficult race to win today, but all you can do is do what you can do. And the fact his car is more than a minute clear, being driven very nicely. Nicely now by Chris Lullum. You know, he'll go away saying, well, if the others were there, I reckon we would have still beaten them. That's the sort of confidence you need. And as a multiple world champion, that's the sort of confidence he carries. You can be sure of that.
Sie sagen, es ist nur ein Auto, aber wir sagen, es ist Herzblut, Schweiß und Perfektion. Denn wenn du schraubst, dann zählt jeder Millimeter. Dann bist du in deinem Element. Du willst mehr als nur fahren. Du willst es fühlen. Die volle Kontrolle. Eine optimale Straßenlage. Wir wissen genau, was dich antreibt. Denn wir teilen die gleiche Leidenschaft. Egal ob auf der Straße oder auf der Rennstrecke. Wir sind immer an deiner Seite. Wir sind H&R. Offizieller Partner der Nurburgring Langstreckenserie.
Liebe Fans,
Lovely fans.
Besucht uns auf unseren Social-Media-Kanälen.
Follow us.
Auf Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube und TikTok.
Willkommen bei der NLS.
Network of channels. It's another edition of the ADAC Barbarossa Price. Johnny Palmer and Bruce Jones enjoying a bit of sunshine now at the Nurburgring, heading down towards Breitscheid and the lowest part of the circuit. Bergwerk is the next significant corner for the Mühlner Motorsport car, which is the Arne Hofmeister example, I fancy, that leads Cup 2. With some pressure on, because just 30-odd seconds, 34 seconds back down the road is Tobias Müller. He did an 8:42 last time around, so that was about 4 seconds faster than the Hofmeister 921 car. But with so much caution here, there and everywhere, there are local yellows at Kesselchen. There's a code 60 on the entry to the carousel, and that's precisely where Arne Hofmeister is arriving now. So he needs to be showing that he's down to the 60 kilometers per hour. And that is because, well, an intervention vehicle sits ahead of an incident that involves one car, and that is a... I was going to say it was one of the Mustangs.
It looks like a Mustang, but it's not. I can't work out what it is. Right, okay, the car is parked against the barriers, 2/3 of the way around the carousel, that famous bank corner.
It's BMW, isn't it?
It's a BMW, but actually does look Ford livery, doesn't it? It's white and blue, but it's parked against the barriers there. And of course, luckily, the driver's side is the side he could open the door. The other side is against the barrier. The driver appears to be out and over the barriers. I can't see any particular damage, but clearly there's been contact. There is fluid leaking down the banking. Drivers are largely on a concrete strip, which is right around the bottom of the corner, and about 3 times as the width of that strip is the tarmac on the upper edge. But clearly someone's gone in the BMW's gone into that dip, risen up, sort of lost the battle against the forces of gravity, and gone up the hill and gone into the barriers. But certainly the drivers are all being protected just before the entrance to carousel. There's a course vehicle parked sort of diagonally across the tarmac strip, saying if you're coming into this corner, go low, go on the concrete. There's another course vehicle up in front, of the stricken BMW, one tucked in behind. The driver is out, but for the drivers coming around, okay, it's a debated pace, but there's that run of liquid coming down from the BMW just across the corner, just past the halfway point, leaking down on them. But let's hope that can be cleared up. But yet another lap on which any of the drivers finding will not be setting a super quick time. And at the moment they're lapping, last time around, almost precisely, the front running cars, almost precisely 1 minute slower than the best time in this race set by Max Verstappen. His car now in the hands of Chris Lallam, and Chris doing the best job he possibly can, but these slow zones and wave yellows are really making it hard for the drivers to carry on. But you race what's in front of you. If it's hitting you, you hope it's hitting your rivals as well. So it's all sort of balanced out. But in terms of being able to carry your maximum flow, you have to say it's been a very difficult race for that. And ironically, many a time we've commentated here where there've been almost snow, almost ice. They don't go racing in either, but we've had really cold, dreadfully wet conditions. And you sometimes, in those events, have fewer yellow flags than we have today. Sometimes people just push a little closer to the edge when things are all dry, or maybe they've just been really competitive batches of cars where people are having a 2 or 3 car battle and someone has just gone off. But anyhow, we'll wait for the carousel to be cleared up, but it does mean for now we're not going to get any quick laps at all.
Well, that that useful bit of talking from you has enabled me to check that it is Michael Bailey who is the Australian bronze racer in the Hoffer Racing by Bonk Motorsport BMW, number 189, who has found the fence, I'm afraid. So travelled a long way to be with us in Germany, and could well be his first action on the Nurburgring Nordschleife. He might have experienced one or two races earlier on in the year, this year, but has come from GT World Challenge Australia, is that?
Yeah, he did a handful of those, but he's done a Bathurst 12, because that's a obviously fantastic race down in his neck of the woods, and it does go through the woods as well, doesn't it? But start of the year, that's a race that's grown in stature, and of course you've got the Bathurst 1000 later on in the year, which isn't a multi-class race, but you know, he won't be a stranger to racing with barriers close to the edge with lots of topography, but you know, Nurburgring is something else. But many a time you end up with someone else having helped you into your particular situation. But either way, frustrating to not get all the racing laps he wanted, but I'm sure once you've tried this, you'll be coming back again. So Michael Bailey meets the barriers, or his car does, but hopefully that will be rectified and he can maybe come out in that final round.
Yeah, hopefully he's okay as well. That BMW likely to be left-hand drive, so at least it was on the opposite side of the car from his position within it. Here is the Cup 2 race leader, Arne Hofmeister, and whether this is just cleanly out of fuel or the team have thought, well, there's so much of the racetrack affected by yellows, it's not a bad idea to pit at this point. Still too far out. Well, having said that, actually, we are within the final 70 minutes of the race, so this is where the rule changes, isn't it? And the perspective to the end of the race, rather than the laps you've just done on the stint into this stop, switches. And you've got a clever little table.
You need very good eyesight to read it. Can I explain my table at the top? It says 69 minutes to the end of the race. If you pit then, which you would just pass that moment, your pit stop will be 357 seconds. So that's the best part of 6 minutes. If, perchance, you stop with only 36 remaining, it's 270 seconds. Okay. So it's a huge swing, 87 seconds difference. Mind you, you're not so likely to be stopping with only 36 minutes remaining in the race, because it means you'd have had to do a super long stint earlier in the race. But let's say you come in at about 60 minutes to go, so in a few minutes time your pit stop will be 24 seconds fewer, so 9 minutes earlier, or one lap. Mind you, with this slightly abated pace at the moment because of all the slow zones around the circuit, you know, you can gauge, but it's all the timing. And actually, if you can do your pit stop on a lap when there are lots of slow zones, you may actually have a gift if you come back out and those are cleared, and suddenly you're racing again when it's green. So many elements to include in all the reckoning, but you know, as if the circuit isn't tricky enough on its own right, hey? But that's the challenge.
Well, the numbers may differ through the different categories, but each team is given their own sheet, and they will have to do the calculation correct. And it changes every single minute, does it not, to the end, or is it every 2 minutes? No, 69, 68, 67.
Oh, every minute, yeah.
It is every minute, and those numbers change. Those are the figures for SP9 and other of the quicker classes, so I'm sure that Cup 2 get their own document, and the numbers are probably very, very similar. But the closer you can pit to the end of the race, the quicker the stop, because obviously the less fuel you will need to get you to the end. So again, it's meant to be an equalisation tool. The fuel is still going in right now. The teams do get to a phase, though, if they come in, let's say, with one lap to go to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they're almost having to do everything as quickly as possible and forgetting about the clock, because the clock will run out of time way before they've done the fueling. And then you really do see what the teams are made of, particularly towards the end of a Nurburgring 24 hours. If a car needs a splash, you can really easily get into a comfort zone, I would imagine, of thinking, well, we've got way too much more time than we need, so we don't have to hurry. And then all of a sudden, in the closing stages, when you do have to do a quick pit stop for real, it's about remembering what you've got to do and in what order. So that will really put the pressure on. The Müllner Motorsport guys, though, as you would expect for a team this experienced, have turned the 921 car around very speedily indeed, and it will rejoin the race. Müllner Motorsport based just up the road from Spa-Francorchamps, along from Stavelot Corner, I think it is. driving away along the old circuit, and they're just up there on the left. Lots of cars in this race, at least 3, possibly more. As now, a bit tight going into the cut through for one of the middle order cars. That could have been absolute disaster on a new set of tyres. And remember, tyres don't only get you through the corner, but they're also affecting the braking ability as well. And I'm sure just a few extra inches were needed to be found on the brake pedal, pushing that little bit harder.
But to do damage to your tyres, if he'd flat spotted the tyres there, going up on the, it was a production class Hyundai, minding its own business. It didn't leave much of a gap up the inside. But so, say you flat spotted your tyres, you haven't even got off the Grand Prix circuit, and the rest of this stint, which will be an hour, we've got an hour and 2 minutes left in this race, could be unpleasant. So these things, there is that natural element you want to press on as soon as you get out of the pit stops. But and ironically, it was only one car in front of him, not a gaggle of cars. But that Muller Motorsport Porsche, suddenly the driver must be going, oh, hold on, I haven't even. You know, it's more respectable to crash on the Nordschleife. You know.
It's true, yeah, and out of basic visibility of the team as well. I mean, yes, okay, you might have the helicopter cam framing you, but sometimes an incident may happen on the Nordschleife totally away from the cameras. You can say, well, I couldn't have done anything about it. I was surrounded by cars. Probably went off entirely on his own, but you can make up a story. You can't do that on the Grand Prix track. What I'm trying to work out is whether this is still Arne Hofmeister, or have we gone back to someone like Tim Scheerbart in 9-2-1. Scheerbart started the race, but I'm not getting a current driver flashing up.
Saying David Yarn on mine. I think just
okay.
May have flipped over. That's Yarn's second stint then, if that's the case. Is it not? Right, I'm just having a little think at the moment. Chris Lullen, this is his first appearance on the Nurburgring Nordschleife. He is now starting to drop Vincent Kolb, and it is not Vincent's first appearance on the Nordschleife. No. So Emil Frey Racing clearly got a very, very good handle on its Ferrari here, the 296 GT3, running on Michelin tyres. The Hout Racing team are running, did we not say, on Yokohama? Maybe that is part of the difference today. Maybe the conditions are just more Michelin favoured than they are Yokohama. Maybe the 296 is just in better form. We're seeing a remarkable drive from Chris Lullen. Yes, it's hard to gauge his actual pace. You can only gauge it relative to the car that's giving chase. And Vincent Kolb knows this circuit really well. The Ford Mustang GT3, a winner last time out in this championship, NLS 8. But he's dropping it bit by bit. But now suddenly we're starting to see generally green flag around the circuit. I think we've just got another moment at the exit of the carousel. Oh, yes, we have. Yellow flag. That may just be the recovery of that BMW that Michael Bailey had parked up against the barriers there. Hopefully that will go clear all over again, and then we can, you know, we always want to see the natural pace of these cars and what the drivers are doing. But it is a race of unusual number of moments where elements at the side of the track just need to be cleared up. They may not be serious, it might just take a little longer than planned. There may be barrier repairs, those are normally the long ones, but it's also making sure that if a fluid has been dropped, as we saw at the carousel, the marshals have a little chance to put a bit of quick dry down on that, because the last place you want to be getting things wrong is somewhere like the carousel. Slip at the bottom, you go straight up into the barriers at the top. Such an incredibly tight corner. It's more than 180 degrees, about 190 degrees as it banks to the left, and then immediately as the drivers come out of that, they've got to sort themselves out for the sequence that follows. And you know, it is a very difficult circuit, however you consider it.
My one opportunity per race to mention Hedvigshoa, which I always like doing, because that is now affected by yellow flags. Only very briefly, because Marshall Pose 153, 15 seconds later, turns green. Again, is that to do with a recovery wagon, if you like, one of the HGVs that is sent out to pick cars up and then take them to a safe location? Is that now working its way through the areas around Wipperman and Hedvigshoa? Stylestrecker is clear, as is the route into the carousel. So it sounds like the Michael Bailey car has been retrieved and now maybe being taken to the nearby car park.
Yeah, you get this rolling run of different marshals posts, and if where the yellow flag is shown and as the number keeps on rising, it shows the rescue vehicle is getting to the closest point at which the car can be tucked away to safety. A lot of points around the circuit, there is no space available for that, but yeah, hopefully that will get to that soon. It's gone through Eschbach as well, and it seems crazy, you know, mentioning Marshall Post 162. There's an indication of how many we have. I think we get to just over 200 if you get up towards Hohenrhein and Tiergarten at the end of this lengthy 25-kilometre lap. Right, lap after lap, still getting Emil Frey Racing's Ferrari in the lead. This is the car that Max Verstappen has come here to race. His first chance to race at the top class. He did a trial race to get his ring permit last time out in the LLS. Another free weekend. Comes here and put in a masterclass. Gained in the first half of this Ferrari race just over a minute of advantage, and his teammate Chris Lullum is now starting to stretch his legs. He's been slightly interrupted by these yellow flag patches around the circuit, but he's proved that when the track comes clear, he's got really, really good pace. He's been racing the car all year, but has been racing on Pirelli tyres in the GT World Challenge, but now getting used to the Michelins as well, and getting used to this incredible circuit.
Another long stop for the number 54 Dynamic GT Porsche. That was very nearly 14 minutes for Bastien Boos in the pit lane. They've been fighting mechanical problems from the off. And also 2 more messages from race control referring to the Huber Motorsport Porsche number 25, which failed to manage double yellows potentially, so that's under investigation. And it's the same infringement for 901. I tell you, Patrick Grutter cannot buy any luck at the moment. That's the second time that the 901 car is in potentially hot water. They're trying to get a podium in Cup 2, but it could be very difficult if there's a second penalty incoming.
Just been given sides looking forward from Chris Lullum's windscreen. He's got a Porsche right over his nose, but good news is they put the marshals up at the carousel, put a lot of quick dry down on the circuit. Remember that BMW that hit the barriers dropped a lot of fluid. It was running down the inside of that bank corner, but they haven't stinted on putting quick dry out. I reckon several sack loads down there, but so that's good news. Such a tricky corner, you don't want it to be extra slippery. And now Chris Lullum, first it was the rolling yellow flags period, now he seems to have a run of traffic up across the nose of his race-leading Ferrari. It's BMW just in the way. He's looking left, he's looking right. Have you seen her? Yes, you have. Thank you very much. Down the inside he goes. I think that was the GT Racing car. May well have been, and he picked it off. That was the all-female crew. And then suddenly very close to the sand on the exit of the circuit there. The grass had run out, but again, this is the nature of the Nurburgring Nordschleife, Johnny. You're in the quickest car in the field. You've got to work your way through traffic. You talk about people doing sim racing. Of course, Chris Lullum's a superstar in that. But one of the best fun bits when you're doing a sim race is overtaking cars from other classes. And this is what he's doing in abundance. He'll make more overtaking manoeuvres in one lap than he will in the rest of the season when he's running in the GT World Challenge. That is how busy it is.
Apologies, because my eyes have been in all sorts of different places. Have you mentioned the gap coming down considerably at the head of the order?
I didn't, because it had come down slightly, and then it settled, and the last lap alone, suddenly, best part of 30 seconds. We talked about gifts coming and prizes being taken away, and still with wave yellows around the circuit, suddenly it's fallen in the lap of the chasing Vincent Cole, down to 42 seconds between first and second.
Well, like I said, about an hour or so ago, it's not over. There were 2 hours and 20 minutes at that point, I remember, and the lead was well over a minute. Chris Lullum just needs to, well, almost not be told. I'm sure the team are keeping him up to date with the gap back to the second place car of Vincent Cole. But there is the number 6 car just creeping by the Klaus Aberlan Fricadelli Racing Ferrari 296,
which is much slower No,
Yes.
I don't know if it's suddenly got a problem, but that, or else maybe, well, Klaus has every reason. Oh, well, someone's dropped it on the Dottinger. There's debris all over the place. The track drops into a compression and gradually rises before it gets the kink, and drivers need to be signalled to go to their right-hand side of the circuit to go past it, because more than half the circuit has debris. It doesn't look like large body parts. It's very hard to tell.
It looks like a tyre's gone.
Yeah,
somehow.
I think so. There's lots of different elements of debris out on the circuit, and the two Mustangs literally nose to tail now, and that means the gap has come down considerably for Dennis Fetzer. So whatever advantage in terms of the going to Vincent Kolb versus the race leading car, the yellow zones have cleared, and the second place of those Mustangs in third place overall is not only alongside, going past.
Yeah. There was a question in my mind as to whether they'd be allowed to overtake there, but I'm sure it's just the yellow and red striped flags indicating a change of surface, indicating debris on the road, but they were two abreast, and you're right, that Dennis Fetzer's now in front of Vincent Kolb.
No, I'm not.
Oh.
It was Kolb going back past, because Kolb was the one with the... Hold on, let's just double check. Kolb was... No, sorry. The one with the QWERTY image was the sister car, beg your pardon. So
yes.
It's definitely...
But I think that was arranged because, well, no, mind you, Fetzer could have pitted. Fetzer was due in. Now, there is a car with fluid pouring off it. Is that Fetzer's Ford? It can't have got to the team that quickly, surely. No, it's not. That's a VW Golf, not a Golf. No, it might be a Golf, actually. But yes, I just wondered whether because one car needed to pit, then they switched them around, but the wrong car was ahead, so that doesn't work. That doesn't compute. Anyway, Fetzer came into the pits. This should be the number 9's Ford Mustang's final stop of the race, whereas the Kolb car can stay out, and looking for the gap again.
Well, it came down between them to just 6 seconds. Between
the two Fords,
between the two Fords. The gap to the race lead, we'll have to wait for it to get to the next timing sector but remember, that came down to just under 42 seconds, which is still an enormous amount with an hour of racing and slightly less, just over 50 minutes of racing. Final round of pit stops should be coming up this next time around. The end of lap 23 is when we expect the Verstappen.com racing Ferrari to come in, sitting on a 42-second lead. But just remember, it went out the best part of a minute and 10 seconds, so it's really come down. But that was a gift wrapped the Hout Racing team. Clearly, Vincent Kolb giving chase, but not really actually gaining ground, if anything, slightly losing it. And then clearly a slow zone that was cleared allowed the second place Mustang to close in. Not that much, but it closed in by 20 seconds. That sounds a bit counterculture to say it's not much, but that's because the margin was so great. That's a very, very comfortable cushion.
Well, it was just about a 30-second gain for Kolb's car. It was even more than that for Fetzer when he did an 8.28 on the previous lap. And the race leader, a 9.02. Not because that was a duff lap from Chris Lullum. It's because he was encountering so much yellow on lap 21. Still waiting for these splits to appear, but on lap 21, it was the Aston Martin pitted behind them, and Anders Buchart brought that car in for Valkenhorst Motorsport. So they have now chalked up 21 laps, but they all dive into the pit lane. And remember, the top 4 cars still owe us their latest and what will probably be final stops in this ninth race of the season. NLS 9, the 57th edition of the ADAC Barbarossa Prize. And 48.8 seconds, in fact, the gap as the cars began this lap between Lullum and Kolb. That was the end of lap 22, so we're on to lap 23 now. And Verstappen came in at the end of lap 15 to hand over to Chris Lullum, which means that he can complete one more lap. So he's begun his 23rd, or the car's 23rd lap, and should therefore be into pit road at the end of this one with about 44 minutes or so maybe still on the clock. But I'm expecting both the Ferrari and the Kolb Mustang in at the same time, so there shouldn't be a gain for either car. They will have to be in the pit lane for the same amount of time. Although, no, having said that, the Ferrari's going to be pitting slightly ahead and therefore further out from the checkered flag. So there might be a very small opportunity for the Ford Mustang to gain, purely because it's 48 seconds further down the road.
Okay, let's just pretend it's a minute. The difference between minute 1 and minute 2, effectively, is about 2.5 seconds.
Okay.
So it's a gift, but not that much of a gift, because anyhow, it may not be there. If it's under a minute, it won't be any gain at all. So, but the later you pit, the closer to the 4-hour mark at the end of this race, the shorter your pit stop shall be. However, it's been a phenomenal run from Ferrari Racing with their Ferrari. First by Max Verstappen, who actually largely had uninterrupted laps, but the yellows have been coming thick and fast. Those incidents have been cleared up, so Chris Lullam has definitely had his hand stayed somewhat. But will he stay in for the final stint of the race? Stint number 4 in this 4-hour race. The third pit stop coming up at the end of this lap. And just looking at the timing splits around the circuit, suddenly it's settled down again, and Chris Lullam is pulling further clear. Yeah, 48 seconds clear, and just waiting for them to dive into the pits at the end of what will be lap 23. So it's been a fairly clean race, but it's just the pace has been abated for a long time by these yellow flags at various points around the circuit. And just worth reiterating, it's there aren't many gaps in the barriers in this circuit of nearly 172 corners, and so if a car is being rescued and needs to be towed clear, it needs to get to the next point with a break in the barriers, and that can lead to long periods where the drivers coming up behind have to back off their pace with rescue vehicles doing their jobs.
Also on that lap, into the pit lane was Ben Leuchter for Max Cruiser Racing, as the various shards of what could be just plastic, but the most awkward thing is that that's carbon fiber and could easily slice a tyre. So a couple of marshals are now out on the racetrack at the Dottinger Hoor, ensuring that those bits are all retrieved. A bit of a concern is that one of the Mustangs ran right through it, but if it was Fetzer's car, well, he's pitted straight away because he needed fuel, and they no doubt gave him a new set of tyres anyway, so he can instantly forget that.
Yeah, Vincent Kolb seems to be running at fairly decent pace in the other car, being chased by the bright yellow Lamborghini at the moment, and that's had a decent run, and that's car number 786, Christoph Breuer, back on board. I'm just double checking that has yeah, that's served its third pit stop. That's why Breuer's back on board, whereas the Mustang is about to come in at the end of this lap. But the way Breuer's attacking means that, well, I think it's fresh tyres, actually, familiarity, but he's all over the tail of the white Mustang with the 2 blue stripes, running effectively the national racing colours of United States. Of course, you think back to the 1950s and Cunningham and other, coming to Le Mans and trying to wave the American flag and all the others. I think it's great. I love a national livery.
Yeah, and what was the national livery of?
Don't say Egypt. I think it was Primrose.
No, of Germany, because I think the Mercedes.
It's white.
Yeah, it is also white, isn't it?
But people talk about
the
silver
body stripe.
arrows. Yeah, but I mean, effectively, that was the national colour, and Mercedes would run that in the 1920s and 30s. But then once after and Mercedes decided cars were a little lighter without paint, that's when they became silver arrows. But, it was a point of differentiation, of course.
British cars, or Belgian-run British cars, as this case with the Pro Sport crew, and then the Valkenhorst car, Martin, that had such a good morning here at the Nurburgring, but the 34 car rather has faded a little bit. Now, some of that is to be expected because of its SP9 Pro-Am lineup. It's still leading Pro-Am convincingly, because remember, the nearest rival, the number 8 Audi, was after the contact early on. The 8 Audi is still circulating, now back in the hands of Selv, but with quite a few new body pieces attached to it that don't necessarily match its current paint scheme. As expected, here's Chris Lullam on the in the pit lane at the end of lap. '23 then, And this is perfectly on schedule. The car was handed to him at the end of lap 15.
He's going to stay on board as well. No sign of Max Verstappen. I thought he might come running out saying, I've had so much fun, I want another go, but I think it's absolutely fair because this is Chris's first race on the Nordschleife in the SP9 class, and you know, useful experience. But coming in will be the best part of 50 seconds, his margin. Over the Ford that will come in next from the Hout Racing team. They both have to come on this lap. They can't go any further on their tanks of fuel. And Vincent Cole will be bringing the number 6 in, just waiting for that to come. But such is the margin of 40 to 50 seconds that this one won't be out of the pits before the Ford arrives, but it certainly will be halfway through its pit stop.
And a quick tear-off, say quick tear-off, that's the whole of the windscreen shape, which they are able to effectively rip away, and all of the nasty bits of fluid and tyre pickup that go with it. These racing cars don't have any form of washer fluid, because that's just extra weight and the mechanism that would power it. So the very last thing you want to be doing is using the windscreen wipers unless it's raining, because that will just smear all the gunk which is landed on the front-facing edge of the windscreen. But that is just like a helmet in a single-seater, or open cockpit single-seater, where you would remove the helmet visor tear off. You can do that on the full screen on some of these cars, and it is a very quick process indeed, but highly efficient. So both cars have arrived on pit lane together. Probably no difference between these two stops. If there is one, it's likely to be about 2, maybe 3 seconds. So the gain will not be huge at all for the chasing number 6 car. In-laps looked pretty good as well for both Lulham and Cole.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only point you can really find a margin. Of course, these are pro drivers and they will take it right up to the line coming into the pits. Other people haven't got it quite right. We've seen a handful of penalties for those, but there may be a 2.5 second gain in the pit, possibly, just by dint of being over a minute behind or into the next minute. It's not the gap between the cars, it's really just how close they are to the end of the race. But as the fuel goes on board the Hout Racing Mustang car number 6, and Vincent Cole has done a good stint in that, but there's nothing he can do about anything other than just chipping away a little bit here and there from Chris Lulham. But certainly that third stint out of the 4 in this race was very interrupted by yellow flags. And certainly on 1 lap alone, about 20+ seconds were gained by the chasing Mustang, but all it did was take the margin down from just over a minute to just over 40 seconds. And it's opened out a little bit since then. But Chris Lulham now back for his second stint, picking his way around the opening part of the lap. Hasn't yet got to the Grand Prix, exit of the Grand Prix circuit, where suddenly the track tightens up. He's into the dip. You go through there, right-hand kink, going up the hill. So what for years was the Vidal chicane. The left-right flick, and then shortly after that you don't turn right, you turn left and then go out into the Nordschleife. Suddenly you're going over a bridge, over a public road. There is no gap. There are walls on either side, and then you drop down, and then suddenly the track becomes sinuous. Right there, right now. First the double left-handers, and when a car, we've had this over the years, spins going through the first Sabine Schmidt curves, you can't see it when you're coming in. If the marshals haven't told you, which they will, suddenly there is almost no chance. Talk about threading the eye of the needle. And then one of my favourite parts of the track follows into Hats and back, just the most sensational place to watch cars. You can be high on the spectator banking. Johnny, you and I have been out there over the years, particularly during the when we're not in the booth on the Nurburgring 24 hours. It is brilliant, and the camps that people set up around the circuit, they're there for days, and the Germans camp very nicely indeed. Lots of Dutch there as well. They build castles. They turn up with flatbed trucks. They roll back the side. What's on board? A hot tub, of course, and a dry ice machine, and massive speakers, and best of all, a huge beer fridge. It is just the most primal place to go racing. You think of the infield at the Sebring 24 hours and other places where people go at it big time, but nobody does it better than people attending the Nordschleife for the 24 hours. Just quite phenomenal. Education in itself going around. Oh, and it's a brilliant spot to watch the cars. I almost forgot to mention that.
Well, it's easy to forget because the distraction the other side of the spectator fence is so great. how many days out from the Nurburgring 24 hours do they actually start constructing those things, some of which are made out of pure scaffolding, which have clearly had to be bolted together over a period of days, if not weeks. So mightily impressive, and if you've never been to the N24 in person, we would wholeheartedly recommend that you do, and just get yourself out into the crowd, whether that's the campsite at Brunchen, whether that's the middle portion of the Caracciolo Carousel, where you are literally surrounded by the action, which loops all the way through to the left, and you can witness a car at speed bumping its way through the concrete paving there. But definitely hats and back is a highlight as well, and the various different angles that you can witness high-speed action. It seems improbable that cars can actually go through that sequence of twists and turns at the speed they do, and at such close quarters as well. Speaking of which, the number 9 car, now in the hands of Jan Mardenborough, is reaching Adenauer Forst. This is the second of 2 Haupt Racing Team Ford Mustangs then into 3rd position. So the order is restored, with Lulham leading, Kolb 2nd and Mardenborough in 3rd, even though they pitted on slightly different laps. Mardenborough a lap before, and of course because he pits about 8 minutes earlier than the other 2, he has now lost a bit of ground. The later you pit, the quicker you can be in the pit lane.
Yeah, so what he gained by that faster first pit stop, faster by regulation, by pitting that first pit stop sooner than his rivals by 1 lap, closed in on them, but he knew, or the team knew, that as soon as that number 9 car came in for its 3rd and final pit stop, what it gained early in the race, it would lose all over again. So it does very much balance out, but then again you've got to factor in where these cars are relative to traffic. Are they likely to be backed up behind a whole other group of cars from other classes that are lapping as fast as they can but simply can't compete with these ones? Will they be delayed? It's such a technical element, but the one thing we haven't had this weekend so far, I'm not even going to cross anything. We're under 40 minutes remaining. We haven't had a strafing of rain, which is no stranger whatsoever to the Eiffel Forest. And you could be 5 kilometres away, 2 kilometres away. It could be dry, but at a point around this 172-turn circuit, you could have your face full of rain. You could have just the biggest dump of rain. And sitting high on the hills, if you've got people up on the pit building looking out over the Eiffel Forest beyond, you can see a very long way, but you can see stuff coming. But the big question is that dark cloud that may have just popped half of its rain down on Spa-Francorchamps and travelled about another 45 minutes to the east, is it going to pass, or is it going to hit us, or is it going to hit all the circuit, or just some of it? Eternal questions on the Nordschleife. And I tell you what, some of me actually really rather hopes that all weather apps are wiped out, because when teams are watching the whole time, I quite like, from the benefit of the commentary box, the safety of the commentary box, is the surprise of weather. There are no surprises other than the fact it could suddenly be approaching a rainstorm, and it could just miss when you've banked everything on it coming and hitting you. But anyhow, it's the Nurburgring. It happens.
The dream scenario has been reached for Chris Lulham as the race leader in the Emil Frey Racing Red Bull backed Ferrari 296. That is a green racetrack everywhere, so he need not worry now about a caution period that might catch him in the wrong place and doesn't catch his rival. And the sector times for Lulham on his outlap, well, favoured Kolb, the chasing driver, here and there. That might be the slight advantage he got from pitting a minute later, because there was a 5-second difference as it turned out. But I actually think Chris Lulham was taking it easy as he rejoined. There was quite a long check in the left-hand door mirror just to make sure that there was no one alongside him. And it was the measured approach. He's now quickened the pace, and through sector 3 is 3 and a bit seconds faster than the chasing Ford Mustang. He can afford not to be fully gung-ho in the final 35 minutes and 30 seconds.
You know, I always think there's that element that if you just back off slightly, that's when you can possibly make mistakes. I think the more experience you have, the more not. But I think in so many sports, if you just think you can slightly underhit a shot or whatever, or, you know, my early days, back off a rugby tackle, that's when you don't quite get committed and you end up being hurt. And it's the same in racing, I'm fairly sure. So I think Chris Lulham will keep going. Yes, if he comes across a gaggle of cars, he can afford to back off a little bit. But, you know, he's shown really good pace. But in every time you've got green flag running in each of the timing sectors around this circuit, they've got split into 6 sectors. he's got an advantage. So, yeah, cruise. Well, more to the point, no, don't cruise, collect. That's the other bit.
Yeah. I suppose if you're aiming for that grey area between full commitment and a rolling lap, let's say, then there are more unknowns because you haven't necessarily attacked a corner at 75%, let's say, and there's always the possibility of a mistake. I noticed that through sector 4, Vincent Kolb's Ford is not there. It's we've got an Emil-Frey Ferrari having triggered sector 4. Mardenborough's been through as well, and there are now yellow flags at Kittelbacher Hohe and Flugplatz. Now, I don't know whether that's because Vincent Kolb is absent in some description, or is he just further back down the road and Mardenborough's got in between them because of his earlier pit stop, but definitely Mardenborough's going to snake his way through. Yeah, no, Mardenborough shouldn't be ahead because remember he had that longer final pit stop, so what he gained to close to within 20 seconds, but actually it kept on closing before it came to Mardenborough. And he got down to about 5 and a bit seconds, and then they dived into the pits. Right, Kolb is there now. He's come through, and I think still in the right place. So that's again a little bit of a timing glitch. It might be that the transponder reading at the end of sector 4 wasn't instantaneous, but Kolb should still be in second place, and therefore no late drama, at least until now, for the two Ford Mustangs who are on course to be completing the podium with the Ferrari of Max Verstappen and Chris Luller. It'd be really interesting to know how many people are watching globally who wouldn't otherwise be watching, having caught the fever for NLS by watching Max Verstappen compete to get his ring license. But obviously this is far more exciting, starting in the top class. Didn't stay second for third for long, did he? Up into second before he got to the first corner, up into first before they got to the first corner, and thereafter the Emil-Frey Racing Verstappen.com Ferrari has just pulled clear, muscled its way free of the action. But the main point is the final pit stop has been done. 4-hour race, 3 pit stops, tick them off. But every challenge thrown its way has been met by Max Verstappen first, then Chris Luller. Looking to see if there are any changes. Right, second place is still the number 9, but it's still listed as number 9 ahead of, that's Mardenborough. So that is correct. Okay, it is correct. Okay, so what happened? Remember, just before the pit stop, there was a big gain on the number 6, Vincent Kolb-driven Mustang on the race-leading Ferrari. 20 seconds dropped into his lap by dint of a yellow section of the track being cleared up before the chasing Mustang got in. But at the same time, an equivalent margin, if not more, was gained by the sister car. And now Jan Mardenborough, he took it over. He didn't take the lead on the track before the pit stop because he wasn't driving, but his car didn't on the track. It pitted a lap earlier, so it came in after 22 laps. And should have been a longer pit stop, but it had closed right into 5.5 seconds before those pit stops. Just taking a look at lap times around the circuit. I need a few more moments until that comes through, but Mardenborough looks so he's building very nicely on the work. It was largely done by Dennis Fetzer. Fetzer was the one that got the gift
the gift of the yellow flag area clearing up before him. But I was just thinking, of course, with the longer pit stop, the number 9 outracing Mustang would lose ground, but it gained a lot beforehand. But I'm just trying to just quickly cut through the various sectors and work out, was there a really unkind, cruel sector for the Vincent Kolb Mustang?
Part of the reason that Jan has hoovered up some of that ground that separated he and Chris Lullum is that he did an 8:01. That was only 10 seconds away from Max Verstappen's best effort, but the Ford Mustangs haven't been anywhere close to a 7:51. 7:56 is the best Mustang time, which came from the number 6 sister car. But Mardenborough's just on an 8:01.4, plus that was all that time gained just before the pit stop as well. And whether there was an issue on the outlap, perhaps. For the Vincent Kolb car, meantime, there is a stranded car towards the end of the Grand Prix track, and this is the Schubert Motorsports car that we've spoken about a couple of times before, the only BMW M2 CS in the entry, CS racing car, and it has stopped just after the high-speed chicane that then leads everybody towards Sabine Schmidt's curve, but car 882 hasn't quite made it that far. And that is for either Stefan von Zabienski or family member Michael. Torsten Schubert is also in the lineup as well. So say the only car entered into the BMW M2 CS class. Does exactly what it says on the tin, that particular category.
Damaged on the run to the first corner, the Walkenhorst Motorsport pole qualifying Aston Martin, who took about an 8-minute 1-second lap for Jan Mardenborough in second place, somewhat further down in fifth after delays for repairs. 7 minutes 57 for Christian Cronje, the starting driver, the driver who took pole position. His next target, he's leading the SP9 Pro class, is the alternative technology Audi of Max Cruz Racing with Benjamin Leuchter, their start driver, back on board. He's been lapping nicely too, but as I say that, no, but I think we could see the Aston Martin going back up the order. That's car number 34. I'm just waiting to get the next timing interval between the pair of them so I can work out the gap between them. But what I can tell you is the gap between first and second is just under 24 seconds. So it has been a swing away from Emil Frey Racing, but what's left on the clock? Under half an hour remains in this race until we get to the 4-hour mark, and then it's a question of how many minutes after that Chris Lullum comes through in the lead of the race, or indeed will it be him? We thought for so. The Emil Frey Racing Ferrari team started by Max Verstappen, built a lead of a minute and 10 seconds, but since then it's been coming down. I think incident has been an element within that, but certainly the gift of the yellow flag that's being cleared up before the chasing cars came through really closed the margin down.
The area around the Vidal chicane is now hampered by code 60 because of the number 882 BMW stuck on the grass. To drivers right as everybody approaches the end of the Grand Prix track for Von Zabienski. So the Schubert Motorsport car looking like it's going to have to be recovered before that can go green again. 218.4 is slow through the third sector, but everybody's doing 218s. So that tells us again that there's more code 60 potentially. Certainly yellow flags in the middle sector of the 3. And that is not, well, the reason for that is not the BMW that we've already spoken. Oh, that's a different BMW, Mike.
Yeah. 5, I think,
okay.
Which we've talked about before in this race. That's another Schubert Motorsport car.
Yeah.
It's same livery, the black and white split. That's Giuliano and Holtzum Sandria. And Swedish driver Alfred Nilsson. So yeah, it's quite confusing when one team loses a couple. And Swedish driver Alfred Nilsson. So yeah, it's quite confusing when one team loses a couple of cars with the same livery. Them, unfortunately, but not a good one. Right, just waiting